I'm Elena Carter. I was in the middle of reviewing a $900 million tech merger when my phone vibrated beside my coffee mug. I glanced at the screen, expecting an internal ping from legal or a Slack from accounting. But no. Franklin Carter. My father. The preview showed one line. "Do not come to the family reunion. We're cutting ties." 14 words. 14 words that shattered what little remained of a relationship I had spent 35 years trying to maintain. My finger hovered over the keyboard. Do I respond with anger? With grief? With one last plea to be seen as something other than a disappointment? I tapped out a single word instead. Understood. And I pressed send. The client sitting across from me, a billionaire startup founder in Patagonia fleece, kept talking about stock options and board voting rights. He had no idea that behind my carefully neutral expression, I had just made a silent but monumental decision. I was going to remove my name from the $2.2 million loan I had co-signed for Carter Vineyards. That loan had tied me to my family, legally, financially, and emotionally. It was the last thread, a thread I now intended to sever. I didn't excuse myself. I didn't flinch. I listened, nodded, and offered legal strategy on voting thresholds while my brain worked on a different kind of exit plan. 20 minutes later, when the meeting ended, I stepped out into the corridor, closed the door to conference room D, and took a breath that felt 10 years overdue. I pulled up my contacts. Marissa Choi, personal attorney. And I called. "Marissa, it's Elena. I need to talk about a loan I co-signed 3 years ago. It's time to get my name off it. Completely." There was a pause, then the calm, deliberate tone I always admired in her. "Your family's winery loan, right?" Yes, I was the guarantor. It's in my name. And now they've sent me a text telling me not to come to the reunion. Said we're cutting ties. Jesus. Yeah, I said. I'm done being useful to people who only ever saw me as leverage. Let's pull the ripcord. She didn't ask if I was sure. Marissa had known me since my second year of law school. She understood what this meant. "I'll start the paperwork. We'll need to notify the bank formally. Your father will have to refinance, pay off, or post new collateral." Good. Let them solve their own damn crisis. I hung up, feeling the burn of adrenaline rise and fade. Franklin Carter had built Carter Vineyards from the ground up, turned it into a legacy brand, and placed my brother Logan front and center as the heir apparent. My role in the family? Silent, reliable Elena. The one with the degree from Stanford Law. The one who always helped but was never celebrated. I co-signed that loan because family helps family, or so he said. But now that I didn't fit the Carter image, didn't work in wine, didn't marry someone from their circle, didn't smile wide enough for the media, now I was disposable. Fine. Then I would make myself unavailable, unbothered, and legally detached. My father's winery was about to learn the cost of using someone as a pawn and then discarding them. And it started with one word. Understood. Growing up in Napa Valley should have been magical. Rolling hills, golden vineyards, candlelit dinners on the terrace. Tourists dreamed of the life I actually lived. They didn't see the rot beneath the vines. My father, Franklin Carter, was a legend in the wine world. A self-made man who turned 30 acres of struggling soil into an empire of gold label bottles and exclusive club memberships. My mother, Vivian, was his perfect complement. Always polished, always poised, always arranging fundraisers and tastings as if orchestrating royal banquets. And then there were the children. Logan, 3 years older, effortlessly charming, a natural in front of cameras and boardrooms. And me, Elena, the daughter who read legal journals under the table at harvest festivals, who never quite learned to smile the Carter way. In our family, appearances were everything. It wasn't just about nice clothes or good manners. It was about narrative, about control. Don't let people see you tired, Elena. Fix your posture before the press arrives. Let Logan speak first. It's better for the brand. That last one, I must have heard it 100 times. I wasn't unloved. Not exactly. But my value was directly proportional to my usefulness. When I won the statewide mock trial competition in high school, my father congratulated me by saying, "Imagine how impressive that'll look next to Carter Vineyards' brand story." When Logan got a B in his freshman business class at USC, my mother called the professor personally. When I graduated top of my law school class at Stanford, my parents didn't attend the ceremony. They were in Burgundy, meeting with distributors. But the worst part? I normalized it. I accepted that Logan was the future, and I was the footnote. That Carter Vineyards was the family, and I was just extra. I tried to bridge the gap in the only way I could, by helping. When the 2020 wildfires threatened the estate and delayed their expansion plan, I offered legal counsel pro bono. When their bank hesitated on financing, I let them use my flawless credit score to co-sign the $2.2 million loan. "We need you, Elena," my father had said. That was the first time I'd ever heard those words from him. And stupidly, it felt like love. In hindsight, it was just leverage. I wasn't the daughter he was proud of. I was the insurance policy that got him better terms. Back in San Francisco, I kept my head down and worked. My life didn't have vineyard views or magazine covers, but it had something better: integrity. My name was built on merit, not inheritance. My success didn't come with footnotes or conditions. My fiancé, Caleb, understood. He was brilliant in the quietest way, a digital forensic analyst who could untangle millions of data points without ever raising his voice. When he asked me once why I rarely talked about my family, I told him the truth. "They only see me when I'm useful. Otherwise, I'm in the way." He'd nodded without pity, just understanding and respect. So when the text came, when my father finally put in writing what years of veiled dismissal had already made clear, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I just replied, "Understood." Because the thing about appearances is they can't survive without control. And now, I was done being controlled. The first time I realized I was invisible to my parents was during my 15th birthday dinner. It was at the Silver Lily, an exclusive vineyard restaurant where reservations took months. The table was elegantly set, candlelight flickered on crystal glasses, and the menu had been custom printed with "Happy Birthday, Elena." But the spotlight was never mine. Logan had just been selected as junior representative for the California Winemakers Association. My father made a toast in his honor. Long, proud, filled with praise. By the time dessert arrived, no one had mentioned my name once, not even when the server brought out the cake. That was the pattern. I was present, but not central. Useful, but not precious. At 17, I published an essay that won a regional journalism prize. A reporter from the San Francisco Chronicle asked for a solo interview. The next day, my mother rescheduled it to a family-friendly slot and insisted that Logan be included in the photos. She said, "It's more cohesive for the Carter image." I was reduced to a background figure in my own achievement. When it came time for college, I told them I'd been accepted to Stanford. My father said, "That's good, but have you considered wine law? Logan could use someone to review contracts once he takes over." Even then, the assumption wasn't about what I wanted. It was about how I could be of use to Logan, to them. I chose corporate law instead. Mergers, acquisitions, the hard, unglamorous stuff my family didn't understand, and I excelled. But even as I climbed ranks and brought in clients, they responded with passive disinterest. Once, during a heated acquisition between two hotel chains, I made a move that prevented a $20 million penalty for our client. The following week, I called my father, still riding the high. His response? "That's nice, Elena. By the way, Logan just closed a deal with a Japanese distributor. Carter Vineyards is going global." The pride was never mine to hold. It only came when I became instrumental. When I signed on that loan, they suddenly cared. Suddenly, I got invites to estate dinners. My name appeared, briefly, in one of their email newsletters. I told myself maybe this was their version of acceptance. I tried harder. Until Thanksgiving 2 years ago. I brought Caleb to the Carter estate for the first time. It was a mistake from the moment we stepped out of the car. My mother looked him over, smiled too politely, then whispered to me in the kitchen, "A data analyst? You couldn't find someone more fitting?" My father barely acknowledged him, too busy discussing new vineyard acreage with Logan. At dinner, when I tried to share news that I'd been appointed to lead our firm's tech acquisitions division, my father cut me off mid-sentence to ask Caleb if he liked wine. By the end of the night, Caleb quietly asked if we could leave early. In the car, I remember gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. "They don't see me," I whispered. He replied, "Then maybe it's time to stop standing in front of them," hoping they will. He was right. And still, I waited. For an apology, a change, anything. Instead, I got a text telling me I was no longer welcome. But deep down, the truth was this: I had never truly been invited in the first place. By the next morning, I was no longer questioning my decision. I was mobilizing. While the sun climbed slowly over the San Francisco skyline, I was already in my home office, cross-referencing the original loan documents from Carter Vineyards. I kept every contract I'd ever signed neatly filed in both physical and digital formats. The $2.2 million expansion loan, issued in 2020. My name, Elena Carter, listed clearly under personal guarantor. I remembered the meeting like it had happened yesterday. Franklin had flown into the city with Logan, both of them dressed in pressed Vineyard-branded polos, smiling but tight around the edges. "We're just waiting on the bank's green light," Logan had said, "but they're asking for one more guarantor. You've always had the best credit score in the family." Franklin had leaned in with that tone he used when asking for favors wrapped in guilt. "It's a formality, Elena. Just a signature. It's for the family." I was already a senior associate at the time, juggling 4 live deals and averaging 65-hour weeks. I should have said no. Caleb had warned me he'd seen families ruin each other over loans. But part of me, the youngest daughter still searching for approval, had signed. Now I was done. By 9 a.m., Marissa called me back. "I've reviewed the documents. You were smart to keep originals. We'll need to send a formal release request to the bank. Once that's triggered, they'll give your father 30 days to either refinance, pay off the loan, or provide an alternative guarantee." What happens if he refuses? Then the loan terms change, interest spikes, early repayment clauses kick in, and if he defaults, he loses the collateral backing the loan. And that collateral is Carter Vineyard's original estate building and distribution center. I blinked. I hadn't known that. So pulling out could jeopardize the winery? She paused. "It won't destroy them, but it will hurt. They've likely expanded beyond what their cash flow supports. I suspect they used your guarantee to balance out existing debt. Removing your name destabilizes their leverage." I should have felt nervous or guilty, but all I felt was clarity. "Send the notice," I said. "Today." Marissa's voice was calm. "Elena, once we do this, there's no going back. Your father's going to come after you. Not legally, he has no case. But emotionally, publicly. He'll paint you as disloyal." "I know. He might even try to turn Logan against you." I thought about Logan, his slick confidence, his loyalty to the Carter name, his tendency to look the other way. Let him try. I hung up and looked at the framed photo on my shelf. Caleb and me, last winter, standing in the snow outside our Tahoe cabin. We looked genuinely happy. Not posed, not perfect, just real. That was the future I wanted. One that didn't require me to beg for a seat at the table, didn't ask me to mortgage my peace for the sake of legacy. That afternoon, as I sat back down to finalize due diligence on the merger deal, I saw a new email pop into my inbox. Subject: Loan guarantee termination request. Filed. I leaned back, heart thudding in my chest, and whispered to no one. It's done. What I didn't know then, what I couldn't have imagined, was how fast the fallout would come, or how far my father had gone behind my back to protect his kingdom. The bank moved fast. By the following morning, Carter Vineyards had received official notice of my withdrawal as guarantor. I knew the moment it landed, because my phone lit up like a flare gun in a silent field. 7:21 a.m. Dad. Calling. Declined. 7:23 a.m. Logan. Text. What the hell is going on? 7:24 a.m. Unknown number. Voicemail from someone named Marla, my father's finance manager. By 9 a.m., I had 12 missed calls, 7 voicemails, and 1 email from my father's assistant marked urgent. The subject line? Immediate discussion required. Loan crisis. Crisis. That was rich. I took a long sip of coffee and went back to reviewing the acquisition contract in front of me. Clause 14.6. Indemnification provisions. Clean, tight, much easier to navigate than emotional blackmail. Then the voicemail from my father came in. His voice was calm, but barely. "Elena, we need to talk. What you've done here is reckless. This impacts more than just you. The family, the business, our reputation. All of it is at risk because of your decision. Call me back immediately. This isn't how we resolve things." I let it sit in my inbox like a rotting fruit. At noon, I met Caleb for lunch near my office. The sun was bright over Market Street, but I was quiet, stirring the ice in my tea instead of drinking it. He didn't push. He just waited. Finally, I said, "They're panicking." "Good," he replied without hesitation. I should feel something about that. Shouldn't I? Do you? I paused. No, just detached. Because you finally stepped out of the role they forced on you. I smiled faintly. The silent guarantor. After lunch, I returned to the office and found a bouquet waiting on my desk. White lilies. No card. I didn't need one. White lilies were my mother's favorite flower. It was her signature peace offering. I dropped them in the trash without a second thought. At 3:47 p.m., I got an email from the bank. Subject: loan adjustment, collateral notice issued. The message was clear. Carter Vineyards had 30 days to provide substitute collateral or face increased interest rates and accelerated repayment. 10 minutes later, Logan called again. I picked up this time. "Elena, what are you doing?" His voice was sharp, not angry, just stunned. "I'm protecting myself. I don't belong to them anymore, Logan. I'm not going to be leveraged for the family business like some disposable asset. You blindsided us. Do you know how fragile our current expansion is?" "You mean the one they never told me about? The one they built after cutting me off emotionally and now financially?" He exhaled hard. "Dad's furious. He's been in back-to-back calls trying to cover this with the lenders." I let the silence stretch. Then I said, "Good. Maybe now he'll finally understand that I'm not a tool. I'm not a fallback plan." "Elena, he's talking to lawyers, trying to see if what you did is reversible. It's not. He's threatening to go public." I laughed. "Let him. I've got the documentation, the emails, the signatures. Let him try to paint me as ungrateful. I'll drop the truth so hard it'll rattle every cork in that vineyard." There was silence on the line. Then softly, Logan asked, "Is there anything he could say to fix this?" "No," I said quietly, because I finally realized he doesn't see me. He never has. And I'm done trying to be visible to someone who refuses to look. That night, I went home to Caleb and told him everything. He held me in the kitchen, arms wrapped tight around me, as if he understood I wasn't just walking away from a loan. I was walking away from a lifetime of performing. What I didn't tell him yet, what I hadn't told anyone, was what I'd found in my records that afternoon. 2 additional loan documents, both with my forged signature. The moment I saw the signature, my stomach dropped. It looked like mine. Same angular E, same loop on the L, but I hadn't signed it. I never touched the paperwork for a 2020 equipment loan or a 2021 revolving credit line. Both carried my name. Both were frauds. At first, I stared in disbelief, half hoping I'd somehow forgotten. Maybe I'd signed something under pressure. Maybe it slipped through a document stack. But no, I dug into my digital archives. Nothing. Checked my emails. Nothing. These contracts had been created and signed behind my back. I called Marissa. "This is forgery," she confirmed. Her voice clipped. "We'll run a forensic signature analysis, but based on your documentation, it's already enough to raise legal red flags." My pulse thudded in my ears. So my own father forged my signature on business loans? "I'm sorry, Elena," she said softly. "But yes, and you need to be prepared. If he's desperate enough to do that once, there's no telling what else he's hidden." The next day, my brother called again. "Elena, Dad wants to meet, in person. Just you and him." "Why now?" "He said he's willing to explain." face to face. I hesitated. Does he know I found the other loans? No, I didn't mention it. I considered. I had no desire to sit across from Franklin Carter again, but something in Logan's voice made me pause. Maybe it was guilt. Or maybe he was finally starting to see the cracks too. I'll meet him, I said, but not alone. You're coming too. 2 days later, we met at the Riverton Club, a high-end private lounge in Los Angeles where my father maintained a membership. I arrived early, wearing my charcoal gray blazer and the blue blouse Caleb had once said made me look like I owned the room. I did it for myself, not for appearances, not for him. My father and Logan walked in together, Logan looking weary, Dad as composed as ever, expensive watch gleaming, posture straight as a sword. Elena, my father said with a nod. No apology, no hesitation, just business. We sat. He began without ceremony. Your decision to withdraw from the loan has created a serious disruption in our financial strategy. I didn't blink. Good, it should. Elena, don't be childish. That word hit like a slap. You forged my signature on 2 loans, Franklin. The room went silent. Logan's head snapped toward him. Wait, what? I pulled the printed contracts from my folder and slid them across the table. These are dated after the original loan I co-signed. My name's on them, my signature. But I never signed them, ever. My father's face twitched. Just slightly, but I saw it. Those were handled quickly, he said stiffly, and the timing was critical. You would have signed them if I'd asked. I just expedited the process. You forged legal documents. I preserved the business. Everything I do is for this family. No, I said. Everything you do is for your ego. Logan grabbed the documents, eyes scanning. Dad, is this true? My father stayed silent. I turned to Logan. This is why I pulled out. Because this manipulation, this entitlement, is all I've ever been to him. A means to an end. You've jeopardized everything, Franklin said, voice tight. No, you did. The moment you decided my name was a tool, not a person. He leaned forward. If you go public with this, I haven't, yet, I said coldly. He stood, shaking with anger. You'll regret this. No, I replied. I regret giving you the power to do this to me in the first place. He turned and left the room without another word. Logan sat beside me, pale, stunned, silent. For the first time in our lives, we were on the same side of the table, and the person we were looking at had finally shown us who he truly was. The next morning, I received a call from Marissa at 7:12 a.m. I spoke to the bank's legal department, she said. They've opened an internal review. The forgery is serious enough that if you file a formal complaint, they'll be obligated to escalate it, possibly even involve the district attorney. I stared out the window, watching the fog crawl over San Francisco Bay. Is there a way to resolve it quietly? I asked. Yes, but that would require cooperation from your father and a full retraction of your liability across all 3 loans, in writing, immediately. I didn't respond right away. My thoughts were elsewhere, on Logan. On the way his hands had trembled slightly as he read those forged contracts. On the silence in his voice when he asked, Did you know? And my father didn't answer. Logan texted me later that morning. Logan, can we talk? I owe you more than I can say. I agreed to meet him at a coffee shop near my office. When I arrived, he was already seated, a cappuccino in front of him, untouched. I don't know what to say, he began. Then don't start with excuses, I replied, sitting across from him. He gave a short nod. I've been blind, or maybe just willfully ignorant. I saw how Dad treated you. I let it happen. You benefited from it, I said simply. I did, and I told myself it was just the way things were, that someday when I was in charge, I'd make it better. But that day never came, and I didn't do a damn thing to help you. The remorse in his voice was real. For the first time in our adult lives, there was no competition, no performance, just honesty. I've already spoken to our attorney, he continued. Dad's signature forgery puts the company in a very vulnerable position. If you were to press charges, we'd be facing criminal liability and a full audit. I watched him carefully. Is that what you care about? Protecting the company? No, he said. Not anymore. I'm here to tell you I'm stepping back, temporarily. I've told the board I'm taking a leave. Effective immediately. That surprised me. Why? Because I need to unlearn everything he taught me. Because I have a daughter on the way, and I don't want her growing up thinking conditional love is normal. And because if I don't start now, I'll become him. I looked away for a moment, feeling the words settle in my chest. I also spoke to the bank, Logan said softly. They'll accept a new guarantor. I'm putting up my personal assets. I'll cover it all. The winery won't need your name again. Ever. I nodded, a tightness forming in my throat. He reached into his coat pocket and handed me a signed letter. It was short, simple, and legally binding. I, Franklin Carter, acknowledge that Elena Carter's signatures on the 2020 and 2021 loan documents were not given with her knowledge or consent. I relinquish all claim to her as a guarantor, past or present. Marissa had already reviewed it. The ink was fresh. You convinced him to sign this? I asked. No, Logan said. I did. I told him if he didn't, I'd go to the press myself. You didn't deserve to fight this alone. I stared down at the page, at the signature of a man who had never said he was sorry. Not once. And while it wasn't an apology, it was something far more powerful. It was an admission, an undoing, a door closing. For good. 3 months passed. In that time, Carter Vineyards secured a new financial package, without my name on a single line. Logan stayed true to his word. He honored the new agreement, assumed full guarantor responsibility, and stepped into leadership in a way I never thought possible. Not just as heir, but as reformer. My father, Franklin Carter, stayed quiet. No calls, no letters, no apologies, just silence. And somehow, that silence was its own kind of peace. My mother reached out once. A short email. Elena, I hope you're well. I know we've made mistakes, ones I didn't speak up about when I should have. If you ever want to talk, I'd like to listen. Love, Mom. I hadn't replied yet. Maybe someday. But right now, I wasn't looking back. Because life had bloomed in unexpected ways. I made partner. Not because of a name, not because of a legacy, because I earned it. Every late night, every contract clause, every moment I stood firm when others would have folded, it all led here. My name was printed on the firm's website beneath the word partner. And it felt right. That same week, Caleb proposed. Not with a speech or a grand gesture, just the two of us on the balcony after dinner, wine in hand, the city glowing around us. Elena, he said, there's no version of my life that makes sense without you in it. I said yes. It wasn't dramatic. It was just real. Grounded. Ours. We planned a small wedding, just a handful of close friends. Logan asked if he and his wife could attend. I said yes. Let's see. Caroline sent me a message the next day. Thank you for letting us in. There was no mention of my father, and I didn't ask. Because by then, I understood something I'd never allowed myself to believe before. Family isn't defined by shared blood or last names. It's defined by how safe you feel when you speak, how seen you are when you're silent. And for the first time in my life, I felt seen. I felt free. Sometimes I walk past the framed photo on my bookshelf. Me, Logan, and Caleb at a winery in Sonoma a few weeks after the dust settled. We're laughing. No one is performing. There are no press photographers, no expectations, just 3 people choosing truth over legacy. The old version of me, the one who would have given anything to be welcomed back into the Carter fold. She doesn't live here anymore. Now I wake up in the life I chose, not the one handed to me with strings and conditions. And as I sit here sharing this story with you, I want to leave you with this. If someone makes you feel like you have to earn their love, their respect, their invitation, walk away. Your worth isn't proven by how long you can endure the cold. It's proven by how boldly you step into the warmth of your own light. I did, and I don't regret a thing. So if you're watching this and you've ever been cut out, cast aside, or told you're not enough, let this be your reminder. Sometimes when they lock the door, they don't realize they're also locking you out of their mess. And that might be the greatest gift they ever gave you. Thank you for listening. If this story resonated with you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. You are not what they tried to reduce you to. You are what you rebuild on your terms.